guys, we are coming up on my personal favorite holiday. I don't know about you guys, just by show of hands, raise your hand if Christmas is your favorite holiday. Yeah. All right, if you're not raising your hand, why don't you like Jesus? No, I'm just kidding. Christmas is my favorite holiday. I love Christmas. I love Christmas. We just got done with the Thanksgiving season, and what comes right after Thanksgiving? Well, Christmas does, but it's not really a holiday, but it kind of is in America. Black Friday, Cyber Monday. How many guys did any Black Friday or Cyber Monday shopping? I'm one of those people. I'm such like a deal finder. I will buy all of my Christmas presents like in that weekend. In between Black Friday and Cyber Monday, I will buy all of my presents on that day. How many of you guys have watched Christmas movies yet?
Started in October.
Kaylee started in October. I love that. Yeah, raise your hand if you've already watched Christmas movies. All right, keep your hand raised if you've watched more than one. More than two? More than three? More than four? More than five? I mean, I don't even know how you count more than five. That's a lot. Okay, more than six? Okay, how many of you watched, Dane?
I think 12 because
12?
my little sister has watched the new animated Grinch at least 7 times.
Wow. Wow, some rewatches. Okay, Logan, how about you? How many Christmas movies have you watched? Okay, fair enough. That sounds about right. All right, Kaylee.
Every Christmas movie on Netflix, Paramount, or Hulu.
Wow. Oh my. Okay, I think Kaylee wins by default. That's crazy. That's some dedication. All right. Holy smokes. Wow. Well, I love Christmas. I love the Christmas season. I love what it's about. And we're gonna be kicking off tonight with the theme verse of the night and kind of just the month that I want us to focus on. It's a verse that I'm sure many of you have heard many times. It is Matthew chapter 1, verse 23. It says this. It says, "Look, the virgin will conceive a child. She will give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel," which means God with us. God with us. So that is actually the title of kind of like our mini series that we're doing is Emmanuel, God with us. God with us. You know, as Christians, it's really easy to believe that. It's really easy to believe that God is with us when things are going good, right? Like when things are going well in school, like when you're doing well on your finals, when the Riz works, hello, you know, when things are going well at home, you know, when you're not fighting with your siblings, you're not fighting with your parents, you're not getting in trouble like some of y'all are. I know what's going on. No, I'm just kidding. You know, you get the Fortnite Battle Royale dub, hello. You get the Warzone dub. It's really easy. It's really easy to believe and feel that God is with you when things are going well in life, right? But it's a lot easier, sometimes it's a lot more difficult to feel that and to know that when things maybe aren't going as well, right? You know, when maybe things at home are a little crazy, you know, maybe you've been fighting a lot with your parents, or maybe your parents are going through a divorce, or they've already gone through a divorce and now you're having to deal with the aftermath of that, or maybe things at school aren't going well, things on your sports team aren't going as well, a friendship or a relationship maybe it is over, when you're worried, when you feel afraid, or you're battling depression. And tonight, I want to talk about God with us, God with you in the valley, And what's interesting to me is so often, and I myself am guilty of this, there can be many areas of our life where it kind of feels like you're on the mountaintop moment. Many areas of your life where maybe things are going well, and so often we take them for granted, you know. But there's one specific area of your life where you feel like you're in the valley, and that kind of can bring everything down in your life. You know, it's something that is so easy to fall into, and a story that I'm pretty sure I haven't actually told with you guys as a group. I think I've told some people individually, but as you guys more than likely know, I've got 2 baby girls, right? A lot of you probably saw them out there earlier tonight, and they were born this past summer on July 1st. And I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of backstory of kind of how that came to be, because they were actually supposed to be born at the very end of August. They were born July 1st. So This summer, Kirsten was, she was pregnant, and really she had had a great pregnancy altogether. She hadn't had a ton of pain, hadn't had a ton of sickness, was honestly feeling great. And we were going to ultrasounds, and every time we saw them, the babies were getting a little bigger, and we were planning and we were preparing, and we had been talking about names and stuff, and we were just heading to an ultrasound appointment on the morning of July 1st. And at this point, we were kind of getting ultrasounds, like every week or two, and we were getting to see the babies get bigger every single time, and it was so exciting. And we thought it was just going to be like a normal other ultrasound appointment, right? We were thinking, the babies aren't going to be here for at least another month, should be 2 months. And we're sitting in there, and the ultrasound tech is looking, and then she kind of gets a concerned look on her face, and she stops talking. And instantly, my heart drops, because I'm like, oh no, like what does that mean? And she says, it looks like baby B is not getting the blood flow that she needs. I'm going to have like a doctor come and look at this. So then the doctor comes in and runs a couple tests, and the doctor says, actually, you're in labor right now. You guys need to go to the hospital. So that's like, crazy in itself. We're like, oh, wow, like she's in labor right now. We had no idea. We got to go down to the hospital. So we end up driving over to St. Louis, and, we're still thinking like, okay, like we're at the hospital. The babies are going to come a little early, but, it'll be fine. And doctors come in, do some more tests, and they say, well, you are technically in labor right now, but I think we can stop it. So it actually might be another couple of weeks before we have the baby. So we're sitting there, and we're like, okay, well, maybe we'll have the babies today. Maybe it'll be in another couple weeks, but, we're at the hospital. Everything's good. So they're like, all right, just hang tight for a little bit until the results come back from these tests, and then we'll more than likely dismiss you and you can go on back home. So Kirsten and I we're just sitting there, and we're still kind of excited. We're like, okay, well, maybe we get to see the babies a little early, or if not, we're in the hospital, so we're in good hands. And we're sitting in there, and we're like, wow, well, maybe we should pick out baby names a little earlier than we were originally planning on, because we actually didn't have a name for Charlotte yet. And we're sitting there, and then all of a sudden, this doctor comes in, and he's got a completely different tone than anyone else that we'd spoken with at that point. And the doctor comes in and says, we just got her blood work back, and her platelet levels are extremely low. She has severe preeclampsia and HELLP syndrome. Currently, her kidney and liver are shutting down. If she were to start bleeding, her body wouldn't be able to clot it, so she's at like an extreme risk of dying. So we're going to put her under general anesthesia, and we're going to deliver the babies right now. And every other doctor that we had spoken to at that point had been very optimistic. And this doctor said, let me be very clear, like Kirsten's life is in like great danger right now. So I'm sitting there, and Kirsten's sitting there, and that hits you like a ton of bricks. We had just gone from this mountaintop moment where we were so excited to all of a sudden we felt like we were in the valley, because now I'm sitting there, and Kirsten's like, oh my goodness, like if this goes south, you're gonna have to raise the girls alone. And I'm like, shut up, don't say that. I don't want to think about that. And we are all of a sudden in this valley. We're in that moment, and our parents are 6 hours away, so we're sitting at the hospital like completely alone. Pastor Phil and Alicia showed up shortly after. Thankful for them. How many of you guys are thankful for your senior pastors? Come on, we love them. But so we're sitting there, and we're in the valley. And unfortunately, I know that there's probably some people in this room, maybe more people than not, where you feel like obviously you're not in the exact situation that I was, but you're like, man, I feel like there's an area of my life where I'm in the valley right now, where I feel hopeless. I feel scared. I feel alone. I feel like I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe your friendships are going well for the most part, but your relationship with your parents or your siblings is falling apart. Maybe things at school are going well, but your parents are going through a divorce. Maybe you feel like for the most part your relationship with God is good, but then there's also moments where you feel like you have so much depression and anxiety you don't know what to do. And there can be so many good things going on in your life, but so many times it can feel like one or two bad things can just completely take you down, can control your life, and you feel like you're in the valley. So the name of our series is Emmanuel, God with us. God with us. And what I want to talk about tonight is, what does God do when you're in the valleys? Where is God in those valleys? When you look at Scripture, it's interesting to see that valleys represent several different things. Valleys often were a place where battles would take place, and maybe that's where you feel like you're at right now in your life. There may be some people in here and you feel like, man, my life feels like a battleground right now. Valleys, they were seasons of desperation. They were seasons of loneliness. And interestingly, valleys were also something that represented a time of growth throughout the Bible. And I know that many of you may enjoy God in many ways when you're on the mountaintop. When things are going well, you enjoy God when you're on the mountaintop, but you experience God in a different way when you're in the valley. You may enjoy God on the mountaintops, but you get to know him intimately in the valleys. We're going to be reading out of Psalms chapter 84, just a couple of verses. It says this, Psalm 84 verses 5 through 7, it says, "Blessed are those whose strength is in you, whose hearts are set on pilgrimage. As they pass through the valley of Baca, they make it a place of springs. The autumn rains also cover it with pools. They go from strength to strength till each appears before God in Zion." The valley of Baca. Turn to your neighbor and say, Baca. Baca. Here's the thing. When I was writing this, I knew, I read this and I was like, Logan Rensing. Tanner Satica. Baca. What is the valley of Baca? What is the valley of Baca? Logan Rensing, just get it out. Give me your best Baca. Come on, you do it all the time when you're not supposed to, so do it when I ask you to. Come on, Baca. All right, what is the valley of Baca? All right, I actually looked into this. What is the valley of Baca? Now, the valley of Baca, it actually was most theologians believe that it was related to a tree at the time. You're like, okay, a tree named Baca, what does that mean? Well, this tree named the Baca tree was a tree that would ooze out sap. And when you walked by this tree, it looked like it was crying. So people at the time called it a weeping tree. They called it because the tree looked like it was crying. And that's why the Valley of Baca, if you look at different translations in the Bible, they wouldn't just call it the Valley of Baca. Some translations would say the Valley of Weeping. Some would say the Valley of Sorrow. Some would say the Valley of Loss. So anytime you see a valley in the Bible, that place was very, very dangerous. It would have thorns and it would have wild animals like lions. And there would be people that were waiting in those valleys who were trying to rob you or kill you. In fact, it was very difficult to get through a valley without something bad happening to you in the times of the Bible. And this is why the Psalm says this in verse 5. It says, "Blessed are those whose strength is in you." Whose strength is in you. Now, this you is not talking about you guys or me. It's talking about God. Now, some of you guys in here, I believe most people are, but some of you in here, you may not consider yourself a follower of Christ. And if that is you, we are so glad that you're here. But, if you're in this room and you don't know God intimately, you don't have a close relationship with God, then more than likely there are times in your life where you feel like, man, this is too much. Man, I can't handle all this. Man, I don't know what I'm going to do. I feel like this is too much to carry. And if you don't have a relationship with Jesus, then all that you have is all that you have. That's the reality. But if you are in this room and you do have a close relationship with Jesus, then all that you have is not all that you have. You actually have the ability to tap into a strength that is so much greater, so much farther beyond your own strength, because if you call yourself a follower of Christ, if you have a relationship with Jesus, you have access to a supernatural power. And I'm so thankful for that. That you have access to that heavenly strength, and that's why it says, "Blessed are those whose strength is found in you." When we get to the end of our strength, we believe and we know that there is a heavenly, a divine strength. And I'll give you an example to help you understand this. So when I was at Evangel University in college, my favorite place to be besides my dorm room was this place called the Maybe Center. Shout out Owen Goosewell. The Maybe Center, it was this ragtag ratchet gym that you have access to at Evangel. I think they're making it nicer now. But at the time that I went there, it was not very nice. And my sophomore and junior year, there was two meatheads who were always in the Maybe Center. I think they might have grabbed their beds out of their dorm rooms and put them in the Maybe Center. They were built like jammed thumbs. and their names were Bankston and Johnny. I don't know what Johnny's last name is, and I don't know what Bankston's first name is. I just knew them as Johnny and Bankston. And both of these guys were absolute meatheads. They openly admitted to me that they were on steroids. All right, so just to preface that, these guys were enormous, all right? And they were super, super nice guys, but they were jacked, right? And there was times that I would work out with Johnny and Bankston, and Johnny's favorite thing to do at the end of lifts was he loved doing burnout sets, whether it was for chest or arms or legs, whatever it was. At the end of the workout, you always had to do a burnout set to failure. And I remember there was this one time that we were doing chest, and I was laying out there on the bar or laying out there on the bench, and I had the bar up there. And earlier we had been done heavier sets, but for this burnout, I had like 10 pounds on either side. All right, I looked like this little weakling. And Johnny's standing over me, spotting me, and he's like, "All right, Towers, burnout." So you pick it up. And, you're kind of like looking around the gym. You're like, I hope no girls see me. I look like such a weakling right now. But, you start burning it out. And the point of a burnout is you go until you literally can't go anymore. So I'm repping this out. You get to 10, 15, 20, 30. I was really, really struggling, really starting to shake, getting to 35. And I can barely move this bar. And Johnny's sitting there and he's got his hands on the bar. Keep in mind, this guy's like 5'8", probably 240, like just this meathead. And he's holding the bar. He's like, "Come on, that's all you, like spotters do." And I'm struggling more and more and more, and I'm just dying. He's like, "Come on, keep going. You got this. That's all you." And before long, I like just completely let go, and I don't have it. Johnny didn't even realize that he was basically just sitting there curling the weight, and he's like, "That's all you." It was not all me. I wasn't doing anything. Let me tell you guys, if you're a Christian, you have access to a strength way greater than Johnny. That's the way that it works when you have a relationship with Jesus. He's there to pick up, and he's there to carry you when you can no longer do it on your own. He's got his supernatural strength that he lets you tap into. When you can't go any further, God is right there to help you. God is right there. That's the reason why the Bible says his strength is made perfect in our weakness. Blessed are those whose strength is found in you, whose strength is found in God. It doesn't say blessed are those who make it on their own. It doesn't say blessed are those who work really, really hard. It doesn't say blessed are those who are just super determined. Blessed are those who are dependent on God and realize that they have a power greater than themselves. When you are weak, his strength is made perfect. I like what the New Living Translation, how it words it in verse 5. It says, "What joy for those whose strength comes from the Lord, who have set their minds on a pilgrimage to Jerusalem." I love that. We're on a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. We may be in the valley right now, but we're going to the city of refuge. Or we're going to the place that they call the place of peace. One commentary said, to get to the city of refuge, which is what Jerusalem was known as, to get to the city of refuge, you had to travel through the valley of tears. I like that imagery. Sometimes you get to where you really appreciate the presence and the power of God. Sometimes you got to push through a little bit of pain to get to the presence of the goodness of God. For many, the valley is the pathway to the place of peace. This is the way the psalmist said it. What joy for those whose strength comes from the Lord, who have set their minds. Turn to your neighbor and say, "My mind is set." Turn to your other neighbor and say, "My mind is set." My mind is set. Blessed are those who have their minds set toward God. What you think about matters. The way that you think matters. That's the reason why Paul says, that's the reason why Paul says in the New Testament in the book of Colossians, it's not up on the screen, but he says, set your mind on things above, not below. And he also said to the Philippians, he said, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy or admirable or lovely, think about such things. Where you are is one thing, but what you think about is something else. Listen, somebody in the room needs to hear this. You may be in the valley right now, but your mind can be set on God. You may feel like you're in the valley right now, but your life, your mind can be set upon God. You know, your heart might be racing right now, but you can have your mind set on God. You may feel like your life is falling apart, but your mind can be set on God. Your soul may be aching, but your mind is set. You may have chaos in your family, but your mind is set. There may be real tragedies going on in your life, but your mind is set on the goodness of God. Your mind is set with, He is with me, He is for me. Greater is He that is in me than he that is in the world. I know that God will go before me. I know that God has a plan for my life. When I cannot make it, His power is going to be present in my life. Your mind is set. You're on a pilgrimage. You're going to the place of peace. Your mind is fixed. And then moving on to verse 6, I love this. It says, as they pass through. As they pass through. We're gonna stop there. Say, pass through. Pass through. We're gonna break it down. In other words, we may be in the valley right now, but the valley is not our destination. The valley is not our destination. What are we doing? We're just passing through. We're just going to keep moving. You may be in the valley right now, but the valley is not your home. You're on a journey. You're moving to the place of peace. God is going to get you through this. I'm just passing through. I'm just passing through. You know, David said something similar in Psalm 23. Help me if you guys know it. Even though I may walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will. There we go, Sunday school. I love that. I will fear no evil, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I may be in the valley right now, but I'm just passing through. I may be in a difficult time right now, but God's going to help me through this. My life may feel like it's falling apart, but God is going to get me through this. I may have depression and anxiety right now, but I know that I'm not going to forever. There's an expiration date. I'm just passing through. You know, and sometimes when you're in the middle of that valley, when you're in the middle of that hurting and chaos and sadness, it's so easy to just be like, God, just get me out of this. God, get me out. Anyone ever feel like that? Or is that just me? No, you just love being in the valley? No, yeah. It's so easy when things like that are going on. God, just get rid of this. God, take me out. God, get me out of this. Make it go away. You know, but what you have to realize is so often that God may show you that the way is through the valley, not out of the valley. The road to the path of peace is often through the valley. But the good thing is you're just passing through. You're just passing through. And moving on, it says, as they pass through the valley of Baca, they make it a place of springs. The King James Version says it this way. Instead of they will make it a place of springs, they will say they will make it a well. They will make it a well. In other words, when you're in a really dry place, when you're in a dry, deserted valley, what do? You dig a well. You dig a well. You take it and you clear away. You make a little hole where God is going to provide, where God is gonna send water, God's gonna send provision. You know, but God hasn't sent it yet, and it's dry right now, but you dig a well. And when you're dry, when you're hurting, when you feel like everything is falling apart, when you feel like you don't have enough strength, you dig a well and you make room for the presence of God. You make room for the provision of God. And you may be sitting there, but it hasn't rained yet. Man, I'm in a desert. Man, I'm in this valley, man, and God hasn't moved yet. God hasn't answered my prayer yet. You dig a well. You know, it's almost as if God would say something like this: if you show me your faith, I'll show you my faithfulness. If you dig it, I will fill it. If you prepare for me, I will show up. If you knock, I will open the door. You show me your faith and I'll show you my faithfulness. You know, this is the way that Jesus taught. You know, when he's talking to that man with the withered up hand, you know, where his hand hasn't worked his whole life. You know, when Jesus is talking to him and when Jesus heals him, he doesn't just walk up to him and say, all right, your hand's healed. No, what does Jesus say? Does anyone know what Jesus said to him? He said, reach out your hand to me. And when he does that, when this man reaches out his hand to Jesus, that's when Jesus healed him. He said, show me that you believe that I can do it, and I'll do it. It's the same thing with the man who was paralyzed, with the crippled man. You know, this man that couldn't walk for 38 years. Jesus didn't just say, you know, I'm Jesus, you're healed. It's not what he said. He said, pick up your mat and walk. He says, if you believe that I can heal you, I'll do it. Show me your faith and I'll show you my faithfulness. You know, I don't know who this will speak to in this room, but man, if you will dig it, he will fill it. If you dig it, he will fill it. If you plant it, he will grow it. You know, you have to plant the seed before you see the harvest. If you pray it, God hears your prayer. If you dig it, if you prepare, God will reveal himself to you. Jeremiah 29:12 says, draw near to God and he will draw near to you. Draw near to God and he will draw near to you. God's saying, if you show me that you believe, if you show me that you trust in me, if you show me that you need me, I will show you my presence. If you seek me, you will find me. You know, and I believe there's people in the room where you haven't sensed God's presence in a long time. You're in this room and you're like, man, you know, when I'm at camp, you know, when I'm at the retreat, when I'm at a live conference, you know, I can feel God's presence there, but man, I haven't felt God's presence in so long. Man, I feel like I'm so distant from God. Man, I feel like I haven't heard God speak in so long. If that's you, it's time to dig a well. It's time to dig a well. You know, and I want you guys to think about this. If you're really struggling right now and you feel like that's you feel like you haven't felt God's presence in a while, if you feel like I'm speaking to you when I say that, you know, I think it's important to say God will rarely reveal himself to someone who's in a rush. Man, someone who's always in a rush, God will rarely ever reveal himself to that person. And I know it's so easy in our busy lives to always feel like you're in a rush, to always feel like you got to go to the next thing. You got to do this, you got to do that. Man, I got this sport. I got to do this at home. I've got to do this with my family. I got to study for this test. I got to do this. I got to do that. Man, God will rarely reveal himself to someone who's in a rush. You know, can you imagine Moses when he's at the burning bush? You know, imagine he's you know, driving on the freeway 75 miles an hour and he pulls out his phone, you know, puts it on his Snapchat story. Oh, wow, look at that burning bush. No, that's not what he does. He stops in that moment and he sits in the presence of God. God says, hey, why don't you stay for a while? Man, why don't you take off your shoes, for the place that you're standing is holy ground. Why don't you wait for a moment and just be still? Be still and know that I am God. Why don't you make a well and then wait on me to fill it? Because if you dig it, he will fill it. If you seek God, you will find him. Some of you guys need to dig a well and just say, God, I want to meet with you. God, I'm going to wait on you. God, I'm going to believe that you're going to reveal yourself to me. God, I believe that you're going to give me strength that I cannot find on my own. You know, this is exactly what happened on July 1st, that crazy night where I woke up, had one plan for what was going to happen, and by the afternoon, something entirely different was happening. When I got that diagnosis, when Kirsten and I found out that her life was in danger and that they were having to do this crazy surgery to you know, take the girls out. You know, when we were in that moment and we were kind of waiting for the surgery to happen, you know, I had a couple minutes where I just stepped out of the room. I can't remember why. It was kind of a blur. But I remember I stepped out of the room and I just got down on my knees in the middle of the hallway. You know, doctors and nurses are walking on by, but I didn't care. And I just said, God, we need you. God, we need you. God, I need you to give me your peace that surpasses all understanding. Now, I love when it says that surpasses all understanding, because it's so easy when either you're praying for yourself or you're praying for someone else. You're like, God, give me the words to speak. But you don't know what to say. Man, God, give me the peace that surpasses all understanding. God, we need you. God, we don't have the strength right now. God, I need your strength. And then I felt like God told me to say, thank me in advance. Pray like you believe that I'm already going to do it. And let me tell you guys, it's easy to say, you know, pray, like thank God in advance for something that's easy. But man, to try and make that prayer when you know, thank God this didn't happen. But when you're sitting there, you're thinking like this literally may be the last night that I get to spend with my wife. It's a hard prayer to make. But I sat there and I said, God, I've seen you be faithful time and time again. God, I've seen you answer my prayers. I've seen you answer Kirsten's prayers. I know that you love me. I know that you love my wife more than I could ever love her. I know that you've already chosen my daughters. God, thank you in advance for what you're going to do. God, I trust in you. God, I know that without you, we can't do this. God, I need your strength. God, we need you is what we said, is what I said. And let me tell you what didn't happen in that moment. What didn't happen in that moment was, there wasn't this loud, audible voice where God said, don't worry, Peyton, I'm with you. There wasn't an earthquake. There wasn't a rainbow that appeared outside. Kirsten's HELP syndrome didn't just magically go away in that moment. But what did happen is God gave me his peace that surpassed all understanding. I was able to walk in and say, it's going to be all right. God is with us. God, and we trust you with whatever the outcome is, God, but I believe that you're going to show up. I believe that you're going to move on our behalf. God, I know that you are with me. God was with me in the valley. We enjoy him so much on the mountains, but we get to know him intimately in the valleys. We get to know him intimately in the valleys, and here's what I hope you guys will understand tonight. God never promised that you won't have to walk through a valley. He never promised that. But he did promise you'll never have to walk through a valley alone. God with us. God with us. And the virgin will be with child, and his name will be Emmanuel, which means God with us. I love what the psalmist says. In verse 7, before it says, as they journey through the valley of Baca, going to the place of peace, they go from strength to strength till each appears before God in Zion. They go from strength to strength. Blessed are those whose strength is in you. They go from a little bit of strength to a little bit of strength to more strength to even more of God's strength until each appears before God in Zion. Every single time that you cry out to God, every single time that you wait on him, it builds your faith more and more. I don't know about you guys, but in my life, God has a track record of being faithful. God has a track record of hearing my prayers. God has a track record of showing up. God has a track record of moving in my life. God has a track record of being there for me, of strengthening me. I go from strength to strength that I receive from the Lord. We praise him in the valley. We praise him in the valley because we may enjoy him on the mountaintops, but listen to me, we get to know him in the valleys. It's where he reveals his character to us. It's when you're in a moment of complete desperation, where you know that you can't do it on your own, and you need him. You know that you're just traveling through the valley. You're just passing through. I'm going to invite you guys to stand up on your feet. We're about to enter into a time just of prayer and a time where you guys can sit in the presence of the Lord and maybe dig a well. Not literally, but figuratively. Some of you guys may be in the room right now and you feel like you're in a valley in your life. Whatever that may be. Shout out God. Whatever that may be in your life, whether it's something going on at school, whether it's a relationship that you have with a friend or a family member, whether it's anxiety or depression, whatever it may be, some of you are in this room right now and you feel like that's where you're at. You feel like you're in a valley. The title of this series is God with Us. And if that's you, if you're in the middle of your weakness, God is your strength. When you're in darkness, God is your light. When you're in a season of trouble or sadness, God is your joy. When you're in the middle of pain, he's your comforter. That's who God is. Just passing through the valley. The valley is not your home. It's not your destination. You're just passing through, and God is with you. God is with you because he's good, and he's going to take you from strength to strength. I'm going to read one more verse, and we're about to enter into a time of prayer. It says this in Psalm 139. It says, "Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast." Seek his strength, fix your mind, dig a well.